Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this webinar of the International Fleet Managers Institute, the IFMI. The IFMI, or International Fleet Managers Institute, stands for International Fleet Managers Institute, and it's the training and expertise sharing platform for fleet managers only, corporate fleet managers. The IFMI also stimulates forward action and it triggers innovative thinking in vehicle fleet management. Last but not least, the IFMI focuses on best practice sharing and interaction. And yes, also in this webinar today, you will have the opportunity to learn from experts, and at the end of the webinar, there is the possibility to ask your questions in a Q&A session. My name is Steven Schroefs, and I'm the Chief Editor of Fleet Europe, and I will be your host during this webinar. Let's have a look at the topic of today, internal factors impacting fleet management. And today we will focus on safety management. Why? Because we believe that safety is a must. Often, the safety aspect has an impact on various stakeholders and also elements in your total cost of ownership equation. Accidents and incidents, you know that, they are not only costly for your company, but also traumatizing for your drivers and the passengers, every people involved, and they can be bad for the corporate image. And with regard to the total cost of ownership, safety has also a direct impact on the value of the car at the end of the contract, on insurance, repair and maintenance, and safe and good driver behavior has for sure a positive effect on fuel consumption. So it's really important that you pay attention to safety when you want to optimize your total cost of ownership of your fleet. So the setup and rollout of a fleet safety management program is crucial. Luckily, what we have seen now is that there is an increase in, let's say, the understanding of and the appetite for safety management with corporate fleet managers and their organization. Although, still too often, safety is somehow taken for granted and can be reduced to a little chapter, an addendum of the car policy. Sometimes it's limited to some mandatory safety features a company car must have, and it can also be reduced to some guidelines in terms of what needs to be done in case of an incident or an accident. We believe that this is a pity, as your employees are the most valuable assets in your company. And looking a little bit forward with all the technological developments currently going on in the automotive and our mobility industry, also the rise of connectivity, and linked to that the risk for even more driver distraction, and on the longer term the introduction of the self-driving car, we believe that safety will become an essential pillar in your fleet management and mobility management. So that's why the IFMI is convinced that safety is key in the approach of today's and tomorrow's fleet management. Now, I am not going to do this webinar on my own. We have the luck that we have some fine experts that will join us. And today, first, we will have Nathalie de Vries. She is Senior Consultant at LeasePlan International, and Florian Waldegger, he is Head of Consulting at Arval, and they will shine their light on the setup and the rollout of the safety management strategy and the policy in your company. And afterwards, we can listen to a lively case study from a recognized global corporate fleet manager. But let's start now with our IFMI partners. And so if everything is fine, I will now give the webinar floor to Florian Waldegger, Head of Consulting at Arval. Florian.
Steven, thank you very much for the opportunity to having the possibility speaking to so many important international fleet managers. And as you introduced already, there are a couple of reasons why we should focus on safety and driver behavior in itself. These days, everyone is in a rush, going as fast as possible from one customer appointment to the other or from one shop to the other. And what is going to happen as of all the new technologies, we tend to concentrate ourselves more on mobile phones, on the GPS, on texting, whatsoever, instead of really focusing on what is going to happen on the road. Also knowing that all fleet managers have proven their success in TCO adoption, best purchase conditions, CO2 reduction, any other topics you have worked on over the last couple of years. We all do know now it's the time to focus on driver behavior. And why? Approximately 1/3, or at least 1/3 of your costs can be influenced by improved driver behavior. Really tackling this topic, improving this in itself will aim to a higher safety for your drivers themselves, as well will improve for you and will be linked directly to the reduction of spend categories such as fuel, insurance, tires, and also end of contract. So in a nutshell, tackling these two key targets within your company, you will be able to reduce costs, having less damages, and improve the safety of your drivers. Nathalie, would you like to continue?
Yes, sure, Florian, thank you. Indeed, we recognize that many companies have a bigger focus on safety. And in this slide, I actually want to elaborate on the suite of tools and measures that companies could be taking in order to give more weight and more content to their safety programs. First of all, I think that safety is a company-wide topic, and it's likely that more departments or multiple departments will have to interact and to cooperate in order to have a program that is in the interest of the company and the interest of the employees. So it really requires a company-wide approach where departments like health, safety and environment, fleet, HR, and then possibly also risk or insurance will have to work together to be successful. And it starts, in my opinion, with creating the awareness, not only within the team itself to understand where do we want to go and where are we today and how will we achieve our targets, but also to communicate that within the organization so that everybody is aware on what you are trying to achieve and the road to achieving those goals. So you can think of tools like car policies, where you document, okay, what you expect from your company car drivers when it comes to long journeys, when it comes to using the mobile phone, even if it's hands-free, or how to plan their multiple appointments throughout the day. You can document that in a policy, but you can also think of safety features that you want to have as a standard in a car. So policy is one, but I can also imagine that you want to have presentations or workshops or intranet pages to share information with your organization, with all the employees, to make everybody aware of what you would like to achieve and what you expect of the people and how they can contribute. Well, creating the awareness often is sharing general information, so not everybody might feel triggered to change the behavior, so feedback gets more important to really create a more conscious behavior. With feedback, I actually mean that on an employee level, the employee gets access to insight into his or her own performance, whether that be with respect to fuel consumption or with respect to the damages, but really to create a kind of benchmark or have people have access to their own performance, really to understand, okay, is there something that I could change or should be changing? And with that, you create a more conscious behavior. Another element that you may want to consider to make it a bit more fun and interactive is to work with incentive schemes. We also see examples of the contrary, where people actually focus on more the bad behaviors and start to roll out programs to change the behavior of those few employees. But I would like to actually plead for the opposite, to have an incentive program that is available to all employees and where good behavior gets rewarded. By using the positive angle, you actually have two pros. One is that employees will have to opt into the program, and with that they are more willing to share information that is needed to measure performance. So that program is probably being supported from an employee basis from that perspective. And on the other side, you see that having a reward system really changes behavior. We have seen examples that was more in the area of fuel efficiency, but where companies really were able to reduce their fuel consumption and hence the fuel spent by something like 10%, because people really got competitive and really changed their behavior in the better, or for the better. So that about incentive schemes. Another area where you need to focus on if you want to roll out safety or driver behavior programs is to have a look at the technology. There are two angles to that. On the one hand, you may want to have a look at, and Stephen addressed it in his introduction, what would you like to put as a standard as safety features coming with the car. And there it gets a little complex if you really have a global fleet with a lot of variety in the maturity of the markets. If you want to list the options, I mean, in the old days here in Western Europe or in Europe, something simple like seat belts and airbags were, well, they are now pretty standard and common, but in developing countries, these type of options might still be something that you need to have a look at to see if it really is coming with the car. But yeah, modern days, modern technology, we have adaptive cruise controls, we have lane departure warnings, we have EPS, so the stability programs of cars that really are contributing to the safety of the driver. So that's one part of technology. What do you want to have as a minimum in your fleet? And that can typically be documented in a vehicle or in a car policy. On the other hand, technology also triggers the discussion on whether or not to add telematics to the car to really be able to read data from the car and also to read data from the usage of the car. Florian will address the topic of telematics in the next slide, so I will not go into it in further detail. I just want to say that the use of telematics could really be an enabler to really monitor the success of safety programs. A final bullet here is training. Obviously, when we talk about driver behavior and improving driver behavior, you quickly talk about the driver training. I'm a strong advocate of having a comprehensive program in the sense that you can send people to training and hope that they will change their behavior afterwards. But if you have a more comprehensive approach where you provide smaller pieces of training and information throughout a longer period, that the message will stick and the behavior will change on a more structural basis. And for such a comprehensive approach, you may want to start with first. Was it a question, or I heard somebody on the line? But yeah, you can consider starting with risk profiling to really have an understanding of, okay, is my employee or are my employees exposed to low, medium or high risks when it comes to situations, and is the driver, because of his behavior, in a low, medium or high risk profile. And that allows you to tailor the training afterwards to really zoom in on those topics and those elements where the employee has the most need. So all in all, it's really a comprehensive approach. Like I said, most likely multidisciplinary, where people from different departments and yeah, will have to work together to have a successful approach towards safety and driver behavior.
Okay, Nathalie, thank you very much. As you already mentioned, we are now going to listen to Florian again, who is going to give us, let's say, a little insight in telematics. Florian?
Yes. So, there it is. Perfect. So why could be telematics you effectively supporting you in all your efforts and targets? It's not just all about collecting the data, it's making them meaningful for you. And based on a telematics solution, you will be able to get all required information you need to achieve your own targets and those for your drivers. In the past, you might have had KPIs like number of accidents per driver and annual mileage, but have you been really able to draw a conclusion out of it? I don't think so. But with telematics, you will be in a position to add more criteria to all your KPIs, such as sales region. Is the driver on landside or on urban cities more often on the road? But primarily, really, the most important information you can gain is there bad driving behavior? Is there always a harsh acceleration and braking? Is the car still in a good shape, or does it need to go for renewal or for repair on certain points like the brakes and so on? So all of these items will allow you to create your own customized reports based on you will be then in a position to decide the next steps, which can be driver training, recommendations to HR what needs to be done, or maybe to the sales leader for restructuring of certain areas, and many other topics. You will be in a position to do so. On top of it, if you want to implement reward schemes, as Nathalie mentioned even on the page before, telematics can help you, first of all, again, to get the data you need to run the reports later on, but also to convince the drivers to be more comfortable with it, because they see a benefit of using a telematics device to achieve and to win incentives. And this is also possible without a geolocalization system, I must say.
Okay. But there are also some restrictions, no, Nathalie?
Yeah, restrictions. I just wanted to have a final comment on what's happening with respect to data privacy and data protection when it comes to European law, at least. It's not that it's going to be a showstopper, but we have to be aware that the laws and regulations are getting more and more strict. I mean, modern life and modern technology actually creates a whole data flow that the people who write the laws and regulations finally get their heads around and get a more strict ruling in place. I just want to say that it's still okay to collect data, but we have to be conscious if you really want to do it on an individual level for the sake of sanctioning. There the law is getting more and more strict. So in general, I want to say, okay, as long as you do it on a aggregated level and for a business purpose, there is not really a big issue there. And you're on the safe side when there is an employee consent. With that, yeah, there are probably different interpretations, but I foresee that if you really are clear in your car policy on what kind of data you might be reading from the car and in what way that data is being used, typically with a car policy, the employee signs for approval, a user agreement where he accepts the fact that there are rights and obligations together with the company car. So that could be a way to deal with the driver consent. So like I said, not to frighten you and not to say it's going to be a showstopper, but the regulations in Europe at least are getting a bit more strict, and that's something to bear in mind when putting together a program.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Nathalie. Already a little question for you. We see that what you have presented in the circle is somehow, let's say, a more holistic approach, is a really integrated approach. Do you believe that it's really necessary to go through all the steps, or can, for example, a safety policy also focus on 2 or 3 elements in your circle?
Oh, sure. I don't say that you need to tick all boxes. I was just trying to depict, okay, if you want to address it really on in a comprehensive way, and also making use of all the potential tools, what the suite of options is. But I can also imagine that you start maybe with the policy or with trying to look into technology, for instance, and enhance the program as you move it forward. So
okay.
It's not to be said that all boxes need to be ticked, but that's the most broadest program I think you could have.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Florian. Thank you, Nathalie, already for this introduction about the setup of a safety management strategy. To the people in the webinar audience, if you have a question, you can use, of course, the webinar tool to ask your question. You can use the chat function, and at the end of the webinar, we will have a little Q&A session where we can ask the questions to the experts. Our second part of this webinar is a case study. So we have among us, if everything is fine, Mr. Carel Aucamp. He is Global Category Manager, POSM, Fleet and Travel at British American Tobacco. And he has already developed a strategy in which safety plays a vital role. And we are really happy that he is with us to explain a little bit more how he has set up his safety management strategy. Carel, if everything is okay, you should now hear me, and I hope that I can hear you.
Afternoon, Stephen. Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Exactly. Okay, welcome.
So, great. Thank you very much for this opportunity and for everyone listening, for me to share a bit of our experience at BAT and our fleet program. So I thought best to start maybe with a small fleet overview for you guys to understand the BAT program. So BAT as an organization started in 1902, and we currently operate in 200 markets. So everything I will talk about today will focus on all 200 markets as a collective. And in those 200 markets, we have 26,000 vehicles and motorbikes on the road every day. So therefore, for us, sustainability is a very important topic, and we've got a big program to reduce CO2. But one of the bigger areas for us is operating responsibly. And therefore, we have a very big program to look at safety of our employees. Having 26,000 vehicles on the road is a daily challenge, and therefore we set ourselves a target to have 0.05 injuries per million miles. And currently we're at 0.12, So I'd like to take you through how we've created the strategy to get there. But first, let's understand the operating landscape in DAT. So the 26,000 vehicles are non-benefit vehicles and actual sales reps on the road every day. And we have interesting scenarios. The first one on the screen is where a sales rep on a motorbike came around the corner, a pack of dogs ran in front of him, and he fell off the motorbike, and he was injured with 3 weeks sick leave. The second one was a scenario where one of our sales reps fell into the water meter in the pavement, and he sprained his ankle and was injured for 7 days of sick. And the last one is a sales rep who was busy counting stock and unfortunately did not see the track door and fell down the stairs and suffered a broken leg. Now, all three of these scenarios are items which we could not prevent. So therefore, for us as BAT, it was really important to look at what items we could prevent and how we could change the environment in which our sales reps work in a more safe place to operate. So in 2014, we came up with a strategy to really address the safety within our fleet sector of our company. And it started off by looking at the challenge on the left-hand side, where we had a very good indication of fatalities, lost working case, and serious injuries. But we had no program to look below the water at the iceberg and really to address unsafe driver behavior, which generates fines and penalties, which then in effect creates vehicle damage cases and then brings everything up above water. So to address this, we created a cross-functional team with our main objective, our employee safety. And we took the slogan of closing the gap to zero for the program. And that's really our intention, is to make sure every employee with a vehicle or a motorbike is safe. We took a consulting approach of looking at the technology, process, and people, and divided 3 specific work streams for the strategy. Technology in this case for us was the vehicle specification, so we focused quite a lot on ensuring that all our vehicles across the 200 countries have got the same safety features. And we worked with OEMs to help us achieve that and help create vehicles in all countries which have everything. And as Nathalie mentioned, for us in Western Europe, a lot of safety features is very common, but in some countries we had to work really hard to implement ABS brakes or airbags. The second element of our strategy was really around process. So we had 12 recommended policy elements for fuel, but we realized only 20% of the end market actually had a fuel policy. So we started there to start creating fixed reporting regarding fuel, which could easily be shared on a monthly basis and could act as a KPI to track the efficiency of our vehicles and to monitor how we're progressing on the areas below the pyramid. And then the last element was really around the people. So it's great if we give you a very safe car, if we have processes to follow, but unless we train the people, the safety issue would not go away. So therefore, we spend quite a lot of time to try and reduce the unhidden cost of 3 million, which were small accidents and damages that we picked up by creating a training program which looked both at the hazard perception and advanced training where it was needed, bespoke for the individual. To deploy the strategy, we took quite a pragmatic approach of setting global guidelines, and sharing those with our end markets. Our end markets then were to follow these global guidelines, implement them, and report back on best practices. So once a quarter, we had the opportunity to share the feedback from all countries around the world to indicate which markets have had success implementing the safety toolkit, which markets have had success implementing the training modules, and have other countries learn and adopt that same processes. We also took fuel as our main KPI, which we shared around all our markets to indicate the efficiency year on year, month on month, unfortunately not driver by driver, but up until team level. And those reports then became a leaderboard or a gamification challenge to the sales reps. Fortunately for us, the environment in which our fleet operates is within sales, so therefore the individuals are highly competitive. And this discussion then became a water cooler or a coffee discussion in the morning before the sales reps left for work to discuss who was ranked first and what the safety elements of those teams were. And this process of sharing and having the drivers take ownership really helped create more best practices, which could be shared at team level or at country level. But important in our program, we created something called a waiver process. And in case any end market wanted to purchase a vehicle or create a policy which were not in line with our global guidelines, they had to apply for a waiver to the project board. And the project board consisted of our trade marketing colleagues, security, EH&S, and procurement. And without the signature of all four functions, you could not proceed at a local level. That created the visibility for us and also gave us the opportunity to continuously enhance the safety or change elements to better suit the end market. So after deploying the strategy, it was really amazing to see the impact in the actual country and in our data. Our accidents since 2014 has reduced by 33%. Our cost in a TCO aspect, as Florian mentioned, there's an enormous amount which is hidden in security, has reduced by 11% year on year. And most surprisingly, our driver satisfaction has increased by 25%. The first two elements, I think, were elements we knew were possible and we pushed really hard. But the third one was really a great element to have to get the feedback from the drivers being satisfied and having better equipped vehicles for their work. An initial 4 elements came up to the water as well, which we've not really tapped in, but we will in future, is the ability to do better route optimization, manage compliance, CO2 reduction, and increase the efficiency of our staff. So today, the program has really yielded a lot of benefits for us, and having deployed it in 200 markets has been a great success. But it hasn't come without some key learnings, and I'd like to share those learnings with you as well. The first one is, once we wrote the safety procedure and the safety specifications, it was added to our global policy, which is, as Stephen mentioned at the beginning, a document which is often written and then left in a drawer somewhere. But we challenged that, and once a quarter created the best practice guides to ensure that our document remains fit for purpose and that we constantly updated it for the environment. So the key element there was to improve the safety as a standard, but also raise the bar continuously. The second point was to work with local heroes. The impact of those water cooler discussions and the coffee in the morning of the teams sharing who's in front on the leaderboard has really been amazing. So I'd really encourage people, when we implement a standardized program or a global program, to identify local heroes and have them promote and change those best practices for you. We also noticed that the markets where we deployed telematics, we achieved a greater impact and significantly faster than any other market. So therefore, the old adage of data is king rings true in this example as well. And the more accurate your data is, the better you're able to change the environment. And lastly, make sure that it's a driver challenge. At the end of the day, it is the employee and the driver who's in the vehicle has more time than what we are. So therefore, make sure you have their buy-in and their support to approach the program. So based on those learnings and the findings we've had after 2 years, we have a future strategy for for this program to continue the improvement. So today we've effectively addressed on the pyramid the fatalities, lost working cases and serious injuries with the technology. We've addressed vehicle damage, fines and penalties with process and with training. But for one element which still seems missing for us is addressing driver behavior. So in 2017, we're planning to implement a global approach to telematics across 14,000 vehicles, where we can actively manage the security, the route optimization, fuel, identify individual training modules, and proactively change our fleet administration for better maintenance and repairs. And we hope by implementing the global telematics project, we will be able to address that bottom layer of the pyramid and really change our driver behavior. So this was a quick overview of the strategy we followed in changing the specification, addressing a KPI to monitor and track performance, and really creating training for our individuals across BAT in 200 markets. I hope it gave you a slight insight and also a few learnings which you can pick up going forward. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much for presenting your case study on safety management. I can imagine that your presentation has given some food for thought, and that the participants might have some questions, so they can use the webinar chat for the final part that we are going to start now. It's the Q&A with the experts. So I unmuted Nathalie de Vries and Florian Waldegger, our IFMI partners, again to participate in the Q&A together with Carl. What we are going to do is select some questions that already came in. And so the first one is one for Carl. Carl, you set up your safety management strategy. We saw in your presentation how important it is, and also how you want to keep going forward, let's say, in terms of international safety management. Nathalie presented already a little bit that when we talk about safety, that there are multiple stakeholders involved, legal, finance, human resources, procurement, etc. Can you briefly elaborate on who was, let's say, the initiator in terms of setting up an international fleet management strategy within your company? Who had the lead?
Stephen, I think a cross-functional team is definitely key. And for us, that cross-functional team consisted of trade marketing, security, EHS, and procurement. The initial lead for the project started with EHS and procurement, where we sat down, looked at the number of accidents we had and the costs associated, and went to our marketing stakeholders with a business case. So even from the start of a program, it was joined by EHS and procurement leading the call.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Nathalie, coming back to the circle that you presented, and I'm going to take it on the screen again. Here, you talked about incentive programs, rewarding versus penalizing, exactly. And the question is, what is, in your opinion, what is the best way to organize that? Is it, for example, that you do it with everyone involved? Is it that you do it between countries? Is it that you set up, let's say, a competition between the different divisions in your company? What are some elements that you can give as a takeaway for setting up an incentive program?
Well, yeah, in setting it up, you have different options, but I am pretty much in favor of having the incentive scheme, or the competition, as you wish, with an as big audience as possible. I like the approach that Carel has taken in the sense that he's having the different teams and even maybe amongst the different countries compete. I think it's a program that should be open to pretty much all employees, and it gets more interesting if teams or departments or even countries can take up the competition between themselves. The difficult part is, of course, to find a neutral way of measuring performance, given the different vehicles that they drive and given the different fleet characteristics. But in essence, I think an incentive program could be rolled out as broad as possible.
Okay, Carl, coming back to you, you also talked about, let's say, creating awareness with everyone in the organization, having also, let's say, a program in place where you can also stimulate your employees and incentivizing them. The question that comes in here is, when we talk about safety, why should we set up incentives? Because shouldn't it be the way that safety is, let's say, a fact, and that good behavior when getting a company car is normal, is logic? So normally good behavior shouldn't be, let's say, celebrated with an incentive. What is your feeling about that, and how is your policy around that?
Yes, Stephen, that's a good question, and we had a long discussion about this internally when we launched the program. And basically, our organizational view was that if you do a really good performance each year, we do pay you a bonus, and linked to that, that bonus culture therefore drives into our incentive culture as well. So we felt we did need the additional push, the same as what we need bonuses in the organization, to drive that safety element higher, as well as to drive the additional value of efficiency. So we've not only asked the employees to drive safer, we've also asked them to really contribute to driving more efficient. So based on that, we implemented an incentive scheme which was non-monetary, and we basically, once you've gone on the training, we would allocate advanced training to you, or we would allocate you some initiatives to be more collaborative in your organization, like presentation skills, etc. So all the incentives were improving you as individual, but still had a positive impact for us as organization.
Okay, a question for Florian. Florian, in one of the slides that you presented here on the right-hand side, you talked about, let's say, the impact of safety on the total cost of ownership, and you mentioned that there is a link of more than, let's say, 1/3 related to the cost of total cost of ownership. Looking a little bit forward with the technological evolution, etc., that is going on, cars becoming safer on their own, self-driving and autonomous technology coming up, there could be a question in terms of why should I pay attention in the future to, in such a way, to safety management, as everything will become safer. What is your answer to that?
Stephen, this is a pretty fair question, I must admit, because yes, we all see more and more product launches from car manufacturers in terms of semi-autonomous cars, more safety features on board. For example, the new Mercedes E-Class, which can go up to 230 kilometers without that you would need to touch the steering wheel. It's just forced by law. But the point is that for now, still there is a human being behind the steering wheel. So the person who's driving the car is responsible for what is going on the road. And all the technical features we get are just assistance systems. So they will assist ourselves while driving a car instead of driving the car for us. And I think a real good statement was coming from Volvo Cars. They were saying, as soon as all cars on the road are autonomous, and there's any accident, injury, or whatsoever, we're going to take full liability for it. But as we have heard, they're saying as soon as all cars will be fully autonomous. So still the human being is the person who can make the mistakes and will force accidents. And the journey until we go to a full autonomous traffic on the road, I think it's still a few years in advance. So we have to focus on, and we need to teach also people that yes, these safety features will improve their safety, but still we all ourselves are responsible for what we are doing on the road.
Okay. Now we are coming back to Carel. Carel, you mentioned in the results that you have booked so far in terms of your safety management policy, you mentioned a few figures here. And one that stands out also for you in the presentation is, of course, it's good that accidents, that they are going down, that cost is going down, but you also saw that driver satisfaction is increasing. Can you a little bit elaborate how did you measure that, or how are you, how are you so sure that your driver satisfaction is increasing?
Sure. So, Stephen, we measured the driver satisfaction on two levels. The first one was an annual survey where the drivers provide feedback on the performance of the vehicle and the performance of our leasing or fleet management company. And that score was really through the roof, and the guys scored higher than 80%. So that was really great. The other one where we looked at was once we've introduced new vehicles to the market, we also asked them for a survey post the launch of a new unit, and all the drivers gave excellent feedback. I think an important thing for us to remember here is we work across 200 countries. So for a number of countries, we actually gave them a higher standard vehicle to specifically improve the safety. And that was really well achieved, well received by our employees. Plus, we also looked at stuff like ergonomics to improve how they actually use the vehicle. And I believe keeping the employee as a center point, that really drives the discussion, and that's why we see this big increase in driver satisfaction.
Okay, Carel, thank you very much. Now we are coming to our final topic, also already mentioned in this webinar. We will talk a little bit more about telematics. Carel, first of all, you already have today, I believe, thousands of vehicles equipped with telematics. You are planning to roll out your telematics program on a global level. How did you overcome the, in Europe, so often heard hurdle or obstacle about Big Brother, the privacy of data, etc., etc.? How did you overcome that hurdle?
Stephen, today we use telematics in Romania, UK, and Spain in Europe, just to put it in context. And all the other countries will get it in 2017. There's a big program for us and a focus to not focus on Big Brother, but to indicate to the driver how having telematics will improve their ability to do route planning, so therefore help them become more efficient, as well as help improve their safety, because from a security point of view, we can address when in need a lot faster when they have telematics compared to not having it. And I think having had that open discussion with the employees to show them we're not tracking them purely to know what they're doing, we're tracking them and there's benefit for them, has really helped that conversation dramatically in the Western European markets and abroad.
Okay, thank you. A question for our IFMI partners. You are both representing global fleet management leasing companies. You also have your own telematics programs going further with telematics. There is a question here, and we will start with Florian. How do you see telematics supporting and improving total cost of ownership, and more specifically in terms of maintenance cost, service of the vehicles, repair and damage?
In fact, my personal opinion on that topic is that telematics will be in the future a key player in reducing those costs, because it will simplify for several people involved in this journey of a leasing vehicle. It will help the maintenance teams from a lease provider to more easily understand in which kind of shape the car is these days, if it's up to a service, or if there's any warranty repairs required, what about the brakes, and so on and so on. It will help, but also on the other side, to more proactively work out the timings around those services and repairs, because then the person who receives the information can call up the driver and can say, where are you in the next 2 days? Is it okay for you if I will schedule for you an appointment? You just need to go there while you're visiting your customer whatsoever. So definitely telematics will be a key player in improving these costs and to reduce them.
Okay, final question is for Nathalie. Nathalie, when you know, like we often see also in the IFMI, that quite a lot of corporate fleet managers are interested in, let's say, deploying a telematics system for their fleet, but they have some kind of internal struggles, etc., etc. What for you can be the main enabler to convince internal stakeholders of, let's say, the added value of a telematics program and setting up a telematics strategy?
I think the key here is that you need to extract data that are really useful. I mean, with telematics you can read pretty much everything, but you have to ask yourself, okay, what is the type of data that I want to get out of it, and then really have data being transformed into information. So I think in convincing stakeholders, it also needs to be clear what are we going to extract and what purpose does it serve. I think also drivers, for instance, are getting nervous because they think they will be tracked and traced every centimeter of their traveling. But like Carel said, if you can show them, okay, this is the data that we are going to extract for this and that purpose, which is in the area of safety or helping them to optimize their routing or whatever, then I think it's more easy to convince people rather than communicating that you're going to extract data, but remain unclear what purpose it serves. So I think in the essence is, what data do you need, and how can people benefit from reading that information from the car? Okay.
Carl, we will end with where we started. We said in the beginning that it's important, let's say, to have a cross-functional team to engage the different departments and stakeholders when you set up and roll out and monitor your safety management. The question here is, in your strategy, also let's say executive management, etc., CEO level is also included when it comes to safety management, in terms of incentives, in terms of perhaps installing telematics?
From our side, Stephen, the program is managed until Group Operations Director and Group Marketing Director. And the reports, I'd love to think they discuss it with the CEO, but I think it ends on their level within the group director.
Okay, thank you very much. We will end this webinar right here. I think that we had really an engaging webinar on safety management. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you to the experts, to Florian Waldegger of Arval, Nathalie de Vries of LeasePlan International, and Carel of British American Tobacco. The webinar will be recorded and so can be also found online afterwards at our website ifmi.fleeteurope.com, so you can watch the webinar again. You will receive a little questionnaire by email after this webinar with a few questions, so it would be nice if you can answer these questions to optimize future webinars, so to serve you even better in the future. And then this webinar is also linked, let's say, to our next International Fleet Managers Institute session. That is a full day training session on the 15th of November in Barcelona, so linked to the Fleet Europe Forum, where we will address trends in fleet management. So we will have 5 different sessions, 5 different topics that we will address with expert speakers, quite a lot of case studies, and safety management and telematics will also be integrated in there. And on the 15th of November, you will even have the chance of discussing and share best practices even more than you had the opportunity here in this webinar. By registering for the IFMI session, full day training session in Barcelona, you also have free access to the Fleet Europe Forum and Awards the day afterwards. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope to meet again soon at an upcoming IFMI initiative. Thank you. Bye-bye.